Your vote can protect our country's faith. Move and use it well before it's too late.
Yes, indeed. Of course, a pleasant good night to all and sundry, East, West, North, South, Central, our friends in Tobago, and wherever you are, streaming on the World Wide Web. A pleasant good day to you. Once again, of course, my apology for the tardiness, but circumstances beyond my control, you see, because I have to manage the entire campaign, have to look for the funding, I have, of course, to strategize, I have to prepare, of course, a program for tonight. And of course, meet the challenge that I gave myself last night in terms, of course, of looking at a document that would be appropriate for requesting, of course, additional, what we said last night, additional international observers for the 2025 elections. And of course, we said in the usual skeptic way, because of the record of this government of being undemocratic, palpably, by telling us dogmatically that he will not, of course, encourage foreigners to come as independent observers of our elections, because according to Rowley, we have had elections free and fair without intervention. Well, I want to tell him, and you know, he's a blatant and unadulterated, blasted liar. You know that. So, of course, because he is so insistent that no observers come, then it heightens the people's, of course, suspicion that he wants to steal the elections again. And so, of course, when Stuart Young gave us assurances that the Commonwealth will be here, and that of the Carter Foundation, and of course, I've added the OAS, until, of course, we see it and feel it, we take it, of course, with a high degree, not just with a pinch, but a bucket and possibly a truckload of salt. A pleasant good night to all and sundry, East, West, North, South, Central, our friends in Tobago, and wherever you are, streaming on the World Wide Web. A pleasant good day to you. Yes, it's a wonderful day, but of course, tomorrow is a very hectic day. We will have, of course, 2 exercises taking place tomorrow at 10 o'clock, 10:30 thereabout. We, of course, we hosted the media to, of course, engage them in issues that, of course, we are concerned about in the Laventille context. And then, of course, in the evening time, around 4 o'clock, 4:30, we don't want to keep people too late in the heart of Port of Spain, so to speak. We have, of course, the formal launch of our candidate and the presentation thereof. So, of course, quite a hectic day tomorrow for Love. But as you see, we are up to the task, and if we have to go the extra mile, then so be it. Because the stakes are so damn high and the rewards are so damn great for the population that, of course, a few sleepless nights is worth the rewards that will come as a consequence of the removal in totality of the PNM. 39 seats in Trinidad, nothing less, and there could be nothing more. You are say? I say that nothing less, 39 seats, but it could be nothing more, because that is the optimum, that's the maximum, that is the ultimate. So, of course, we continue, of course, to treat with the issues of the day. I would love, of course, your comments in terms of your own impressions, and I'm sure that you have your own issues that you would want to treat with. But, of course, we continue, of course, to highlight our candidate for Laventille West, Robert Mitchell. And, of course, today he had to go to, of course, opposition leaders' house or office to get some brief on the registration process or the nomination day process, because you know that is around the 4th of next month. And then, of course, and we are almost on the closing of March, so we have to move speedily, smartly, and at the same time making sure that mistakes are not made, because on nomination day, that is it. That is it. That is it. It has always been so. If you don't meet the grade, then of course you would flounder. So we have to find, of course, $5,000 clearly to, of course, provide to Mitchell and therefore to the EBC to contest the elections. Yes, that is how serious it is. Very, very serious thing. And of course, we continue because I'm not a rich man, as you would realize. But of course, I like you to pursue rich things. Rich in the sense that it will benefit, of course, the vast majority who can, of course, come up to scratch and therefore, of course, make their contribution, not only to themselves, in terms, of course, of survivability and contribution to the society, but certainly in the development process of Trinidad and Tobago. So, with these few words, let me, of course, go straight, of course, to the document that I would have put together. I did, in fact, as I said, put one before in terms of calling for international observers. But let me just read from that document. In the meantime, of course, the lines are open and you can, of course, call me immediately. Of course, we are looking for 40,000. Don't forget, please, don't forget that to get me on, or to get the corridor on Facebook, you have to log into Alfred John. You will not get it on corridor simply because they hacked into it and we have left it alone. But of course, YouTube, well, you just log into Corridor Transformation and you should have us there. Let me make sure, of course, by referring to referencing my phone to make sure that we are there and online. Yes, indeed. So let me see. Yes, indeed. So I'm just scrolling through to see. Let me just key in Alfred John, ALFRED, Alfred John, right? And let's see if we are on, so that I will be experiencing the same thing as you are. All right, not seeing it. Let me see. Why I'm not seeing it? Should have live at the side of it. I'm not seeing it on Facebook. I've logged on to Alfred John. But let me go to, of course, YouTube. Let me go to YouTube and see what is happening there. Let's go to YouTube and let me see what's happening there. YouTube, and let's see what is happening if it is not on, if you didn't get it on Facebook. Let me see. We have a double supply of internet, so this is connected to a different one. Let me see. I see live. Yes. And yes, indeed, it is here on YouTube, as expected. So, and you're hearing me speaking. It's a bit delay. There will be a delay when I put the phone, of course, to the mic. But just to indicate to you that we are on. So just key in or log on to YouTube, but log on to Corridor Transformation, and you will get us there. Looking good. All right, people. Let me go back to Facebook and see what is happening. If it is on YouTube, it ought to be on Facebook as well. So let's see what is happening there. Alfred John on Facebook. All right, let me go to Facebook in general and see if it is there as well. Because if normally when I can't get it on Alfred John, I go to the normal Facebook and see whether or not it is there. Not seeing it. So anybody who, of course, have information or I might have missed it, then tell me if you are seeing the corridor transformation on Facebook at this stage. That being as it may, of course, the lines are open. Let me make sure that the line is up and running. Sometimes we have that difficulty as well. So let's see. All right. What's happening there? I'm not seeing it. All right, so let me just go back. Right, then enact WhatsApp. All right, remember it's only WhatsApp calls. Only WhatsApp calls. All right, let me, of course, cut off the music and we will continue with the program. Yes, indeed. Of course, let me just read the letter that was sent to the Prime Minister, the present Prime Minister. Love, yes, love, let me see, love letters, right. And the letter says, of course, let me just get, all right, good. Love, 17th, yes, okay, so subject, presence of additional observers for the 2025 general election. Dear Honorable Prime Minister, let me first convey congratulations to you for your ascendancy to the singular and exalted position or office of Prime Minister. I for one believe in the concept, idiom or maxim, the proof of the pudding is in the eating. That being as it may, I also believe that elections in Trinidad cannot be even perceived to be tainted or manipulated, no matter how noble or well intended the purpose may be to the those who decide to engage in interfering with, of course, the electoral process. The term is, of course, TCT, THESPIANS. Of course, he'll have to look in the dictionary for that, right? That a thespian, of course, is one who participates in, of course, in an activity, usually, of course, in theatric productions. To this end, and given that your predecessor, which of course is Rowley, has edict, trying to make it look as though he's a dictator, of course, that only CARICOM and is only a dictator will talk in that way, and of course insisted that because they have the power, they will only, of course, cause a certain grouping to enter into Trinidad to, of course, superintend or at least to observe our elections. And that I find is undemocratic and, of course, is consistent with someone who wants to steal the elections. Of course, we have right next door Maduro to, of course, thank for being an example, a classic example, a main example of course, such an individual. So, of course, CARICOM observers for the 2025 general elections, he has prepared to pen, he was prepared to pen an invitation to on the matter of independent observers, and having regard to the very public information that the Assistant Secretary General of CARICOM is the wife of Reginald Amor, confirmed. And because of the last two elections, 2015 and 2020, have emitted disquieting concerns as to elements of interference, it is therefore out of an abundance of caution and, of course, elimination of any notion of concern that this request for additional observers is requested to observe the 2025 general elections on whatever date you deem fit and appropriate. Well, of course, we know the date, and we know whether it's appropriate or not is irrelevant. It is the date, and of course, the die has been cast, and we have to, of course, conform. 28th of next month. We have just about 3 more days in this month. All right, so literally 28, about 31 days. Indeed, the dogmatic and injurious public statement by a former Prime Minister, Honorable Keith Rowley, that he will not invite any other observers has compounded the urgency and need to pen this correspondence to your good self. At minimum, citizens would appreciate the presence of the Commonwealth Secretariat and or the Carter Foundation, of course, in inviting the OAS, the Organization of American States, can only enhance the transparency, legitimacy, and vanquish doubt that your PNM administration is profoundly alike, yes, alert and reverse the sanctity of the electoral process as the pillar of the democracy, the democratic processes we practice in this country. The nation can only stand to benefit in the eyes of our regional, hemispheric, and international partners or partner nations. This is simple but significant request we hope will be taken into the context intended, and expressed above, with the expectation that action will be taken in due course, meaning that he penned to these institutions to have them get here on time. Sincerely, of course, Lennox Smith, political leader of Love, a political entity dedicated to the Laventilles and environs. A copy, of course, the British High Commission, copy as well the Carter Foundation, or the Organization of American States, and the State Department copied to the State Department, as well as copied to the Secretary of State, who incidentally is now in Jamaica. So those are the areas that I mentioned, and that is the context of the letter that I sent to the Prime Minister. And as I said, there's one that I have to generate an addendum to, that will encompass, of course, the whole question of Delcy Rodriguez, and of course the present circumstances that Trinidad and Tobago has found itself. Stuart Young, as Prime Minister, of course, was subjected and to the most, of course, embarrassing scenario when, of course, the ambassador for the United States, Regello, yes, had to make a public statement saying, in essence, that Stuart Young lied on him, and that he, of necessity and because of the nature of his work, had to raise the issue of Delcy Rodriguez. Of course, that was as a consequence of Stuart Young bellowing in the parliament. That never came up, as if to suggest that the Americans were not concerned, and why we in Trinidad and Tobago must be concerned. Well, of course, he was subjected to the most, what I consider to be diplomatic embarrassment, but raw and dry. I mean, and here it is, we have this man being anointed as Prime Minister in this country. Of course, the other issue is that of him calling the leader of the opposition, Zamias, and words to that effect, which of course are derogatory in the context of Trinidad and Tobago, and suggests a misogynic propensity, a hater of women propensity, or put another way, depending on who he likes, or depending on who is in his favor, he then, of course, chooses words that may be much more acceptable and salubrious. But when they may be his political enemy, then, of course, they get a stinging, nasty, ugly, poisonous tongue. That is, of course, the so-called Prime Minister, or put another way, the lame duck Prime Minister. That is, of course, that Chinese man called Stuart Young. On the screen, of course, you will be seeing, of course, our candidate meeting and greeting with the political leader of the UNC, Kamala Prasad Bisesa, and therefore the head of the UNC coalition of interest entities, of which, of course, Love is just one component. PEP is there. And I want to tell you off the cuff that tomorrow morning we will be at around 10 o'clock having, of course, a press conference on a number of issues. I will share it with you in a while. And then, of course, in the evening time, as I said, with the formal launch, and of course on Saturday morning, a real campaigning starts for, of course, the battleground. Not really a battleground, but it will be converted to a battleground for the PNM. But of course, we are the underdogs, and therefore, of course, they have much more to lose than us. But I want to tell the population of Laventille, you have much more to lose if you only choose a PNM candidate or the PNM candidate. Let me repeat, Laventille, you have much more to lose when and if you take God out of your thoughts and vote for the PNM candidate. Whosoever that is, it is irrelevant to me, because they can't match the kind of delivery without being in government. Quality, committed, almost intrusive, but significant. Because if you take out those contributions, without the PNM's support and its representatives, whether it be Donald Cox in the past or Fitzgerald Hines in the past and present, etc. Whether that's so or not, the fact of the matter is that comparatively speaking, we have gone, the community itself that saw the problem and decided to do something about it, has gone miles compared to ahead of the government. Because as I said this morning, Rowley in the BTM will talk about, of course, that BTM is a special place with special problems and requires special attention. Yeah, right. Yeah, right, Rowley. And then, of course, he was speaking like that because it was in the cusp of the SOE instituted by Kamala Prasad Bisesa in 2011. And so it was politically expedient and opportunistic for him to talk in that manner. He also, of course, just before the 2015 elections, attacked his own leader, Patrick Manning, by, of course, being extremely concerned and was in a state of heartbreaking panic when he said that the NAPA, the National Academy for Performing Arts, when it was being constructed, that only Chinese working there and not a person from Diego Martin, Laventille, Sealots, etc. worked there. That's what he said. And today, he has demonstrated a consistency nestled, of course, in the opposite position of what he was concerned about back before the 2015 general elections, and therefore a total liar, hypocrite, deceiver, manipulator, and exploiter in more ways than one. So let us not waste time. I'm getting the impression that people may be calling and we are having difficulty with the phone. I trust not. But I've not seen a call as yet, and usually, of course, people call in. So I don't know if it is the internet issue and the question of Facebook, because I'm still not seeing, of course, the corridor on Facebook. Alfred John is the page that you should be looking to get, of course, inside the corridor transformation at this point in time. I'm scrolling, of course, simultaneously whilst I am engaging you to make certain that we have. Okay, well, let's see what's happening here. Yes, indeed. Pleasant good night. Welcome to the corridor.
Hey, Lennox.
Hey, all right, good. Tell me.
You wasn't getting any call, so I tried to call and see if it was working.
All right, good, great. Thanks, so it means your phone is working.
Yeah. So anyway, so how you doing?
Well, of course,
how you doing, man?
I'm
listening to you, man.
Okay, man. Yes. We fight. Tomorrow, of course.
Yeah, I'm on the road, man. I'm on the road right now. I'm on the road now. I wasn't always on the phone, man.
All right, okay, my friend. So you have a,
I have a
you
whole
have a
lot of
wonderful one.
watermelon and taking it down to coastal Carolina here.
All right, okay, my friend. Boy, oh boy, you have. I thought I used to work. 24/7, but you beat me back, boy.
Lennox, that night when I was talking to you,
Eh, yeah.
I didn't stop until the next morning.
Wow, boy, you have stamina, boy.
8 o'clock, 9 o'clock
Now I have a problem with driving.
in the day.
I just sleep, boy, so I can't do them long distance.
No, you can't do the job I do because I used to that.
Yeah, I can. I definitely can. I
I
definitely
be from
can.
state to state, and I'll be next look like tonight. I'll be doing like I go drive about 500, almost 600 miles.
Wow. I have to commend you, boy. Every time you speak.
But one of these days, when you come here, one of these days, there,
Yes.
I'll take you for a ride.
All right,
Take you for a ride.
I'm
No,
looking
yeah,
looking forward to that.
bed at the end.
Yeah,
I
I'm
double
looking
decker
forward to
bed, fridge. I got microwave. I got food in the fridge. I got pressure air fryer and everything. You can make anything you want.
All right, okay, my friend. All right, well then, I'm looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to it. Tremendous
You
anticipation.
will enjoy it. Man.
Yeah. But after, of course, the 28th, I suppose I may have some free time to, of course, do those kinds of what I consider to be. It's not a pilgrimage, but certainly an excursion. Yes, let's go to the line. Thank you very much, of course, my friend. A pleasant good night. Welcome to the corridor. Oh, sorry about that. Let me see. Right. Okay, go ahead, caller. Sorry about that.
Good night, Trinidad and Tobago.
Yes.
By extension, the world. Yeah, I have a message to the people, right, of Trinidad and Tobago. Do not say if PNM win, right, because PNM not winning, right? That is one. Two. Just now. Two. To the followers of PNM. All you can let the rich get richer and wait on them to help all you. Right? But the smart citizens, we ain't waiting. It's UNC. So the followers could wait until the rich get richer to help them. All right? And one more thing.
Go ahead.
Just now.
Yeah.
You don't change a winning team, right? If you have a team and the winning, right? The winning a competition. When you go into a next match, you will change the team that winning?
Of course not.
You wouldn't do that.
That's right.
Right. So PNM changed the team. That is because they're not winning, they're losing.
Oh, wonderful assessment of the situation, my friend. I love that one. I'm sure I'll have opportunities to revisit that thought pattern. I think is a wonderful analysis. The fact that they are not winning, they have changed their team. But of course, is more a reshuffle as opposed to changing the team. They just change the order. But it's a bunch of course, nincompoops and indolence and incompetent people, of course, nestled in a criminal mafia type operation called the PNM.
Well, I know that, Dr. Lennox, but I know that. But why I say the change the team is because although it's the same people that reshuffle, when you check it out, they change. The data change.
Yeah, the intention is to appear to change. Yes.
To me, that is changing the team because you see, if
no, you're right. I'm just saying that those of us who, like you, are discerning will come to that conclusion as well. But we know the intention is to give the facade, the impression that it is a change, and therefore a new dispensation is coming. And of course, you have what? Ministry of Efficiency. I mean, what is that? But go ahead, my friend.
Yeah. Well, all right. Well, watch it from this angle, right? If there was if Rowley and how it was before,
Yeah.
if they were on top of the game,
Yeah.
right? There was no reshuffling.
Yeah, there was no need to reshuffle either. I agree with
That's
you, my
right.
friend. Yes, okay.
All right.
Thank you very much for that
All right, my
clarification.
brother.
Yes, bye-bye. Yes, indeed. People, of course, this is the notice that I sent out, and I will be sending out, of course, tonight as well, asking those media people, personnel who are there, particularly the traditional media, television, newspaper, and so on, and radio stations. We need, of course, to get you here on George Street tomorrow. It's a very significant date because I'm going to, of course, just give some cursory indicators as to what the discussions will be about tomorrow, what I want to share with the national community, quite apart from showcasing our candidate, of course, Mr. Robert Mitchell. But just listen to this before, of course, I go straight to the documentation itself. Yes.
Laventille Outreach for Vertical Enrichment invites all media houses to our press conference and presentation of candidate.
Once again.
Political leader of love, Laventille Outreach for Vertical Enrichment invites all media houses to our press conference and presentation of candidate for Laventille West at campaign headquarters, 55 George Street, Port of Spain, on Friday 28th, March 2025, from 10:30 a.m., third building from the Prince Street corner. Laventille must live better. We can do better. When UNC and Coalition win, everybody wins.
Yes, indeed. Maybe I should play it again so that you have a greater understanding. But don't forget, of course, it is tomorrow. It is at 10:30 for the media people. Of course, I expect that the guests and other stakeholders will be there before 10:30, so around 10 o'clock.
Political leader of love, Laventille Outreach for Vertical Enrichment invites all media houses to our press conference and presentation of candidate for Laventille West at campaign headquarters, 55 George Street, Port of Spain, on Friday 28th, March 2025, from 10:30 a.m., third building from the Prince Street corner. Laventille must live better. We can do better. When UNC and Coalition win, everybody wins.
And yes, indeed. And of course, as I said, the exercise, that will be about the morning time, the press conference, and then in the evening, we will have, of course, the formal launch and presentation of the candidates. All right, I will have to maybe prepare a different ad to, of course, reflect that. But I thought what is important at the first port of call is, of course, the press conference. What will be discussed? Well, I think it is in it is the public domain. If you were, of course, a media house, I would have sent you this piece of information here, right? So it's not to say that it is secret. There's anything secretive about it. So listen to what I would have sent, of course, to the media houses, and that is invitation to press conference on launch of candidates and the 2025 election campaign, and of course the news, of course, and assignment editor of this media house, Laventille Outreach for Vertical Enrichment, a member of the coalition of interests led by UNC and a political leader, Honorable Kamala Prasad Bisesa, will be hosting a press conference. Date, Friday the 28th of March 2025. Time, 10:30 a.m. That is for them, those who are interested and would like to just, for curiosity's sake or otherwise, you can, of course, put in your attendance. Venue, our campaign and head office at number 55 George Street, Port of Spain, 3 buildings from the Prince Street corner. And then, of course, issues to be addressed pre-action protocol letter from current Prime Minister Stuart Young. 2. Candidate introduction. 3. EBC issues. 4. International observers. 5. A platform for Laventille's transformation based on previous efforts. And then, of course, it continues. Another part of that press release or that invitation to the media houses states a formal launch of Love's campaign at 4:30, same day, evening of Friday, the 28th March 2025. So both activities will take place tomorrow. Location, corner George Street and Prince Street, Port of Spain. Well, that is at the corner, not too far from the building that we occupy at 4:30 p.m. Of course, please confirm your attendance. Of course, my assistant, the Assistant General Secretary, of course, Anne-Marie De Leon, both the acting in the capacity of Assistant General Secretary of the party, and of course the PRO. Of course, there is a little note on the side that says Mr. Smith, political leader, can be contacted at 337-6940, 337-6940, and of course there's another number, 336-6594, 336-6594, and that of course will lead you to me. So that is where we are at as far as, of course, tomorrow's activities are concerned. And of course on Saturday morning we will be, of course, rolling out our campaign strategy in terms of getting into and putting boots on the ground and interaction. Of course, today I want to tell you as well that, of course, I did contact the PEP leader, Mr. Philip, and he has agreed that he will be present, and of course he will of necessity have to say something, and he in reciprocity I reciprocated, because he had asked of me a favor as well, and I did agree that we will be engaged on Saturday morning with a coordinated cooperative team to work with his team in the Port of Spain North St. Anne's West constituency as they of course meet and greet constituents. And of course my team have agreed to work with the PEP team in order to show solidarity and to show that we are a force to reckon with. And I expect that will be reciprocated when we start to walk the hills of Laventille. In addition to that, I had a meeting, of course, with the UNC arm of the Laventille constituency, the UNC Laventille constituency executive and operatives. Wonderful meeting, very experienced. I felt that half of the work that I had to do would have been, of course, dealt with by such experienced people. And I want to tell them here and now that I really appreciated the meeting today. And of course, it was a pleasure meeting such experts in the Laventille context. Of course, we'll do it a little different on this occasion, because after all, it is only a person who may be not so bright will do the same thing over and over and expect a different result. So when, of course, as a human being or as human beings, when you fail by one strategy, you then have to adapt other strategies and so on. And of course, taking into account the objectives of the project or the program. And in this case, of course, is to get rid of the PNM in Laventille West specifically, but in general across the country. And therefore Laventille must be part of history. And I'm going to tell them now, as I told the gathering today of course, the UNC activists on the basis of the constituency operations or operatives, as I told them today, that of all of the 39 seats that would have been won by the UNC coalition led by Kamala Prasad Bisesa of interest. The Laventilles will be the greatest prize. Laventilles will be the greatest prize simply because they have not shifted their pattern of, not allegiance, pattern of voting. Pattern of voting since, of course, electoral or party politics became common practice for electing a government in Trinidad and Tobago. And so it is important that you understand that you'll be making history. And do not allow the PNM sycophants and those who may be your friends, with whom you have to distance yourself on this occasion, because 5 years is not an eternity. 5 years is 5 years. And there are those who will tell you, well, why the PNM will be concerned that we are not asking, or nobody in Caroni and places like these, where, of course, total commitment to the UNC has been expressed over time, and the UNC, or whatever version over the years, have been winning in these constituencies or that part of the country. The big difference is this: let us not waste time and play stupid or generate an asinine argument, as I've seen some, because some say, well, it's a democracy and therefore you can't tell people how to vote because they have choice. There are others who would say that why those persons in Central and so on have not changed their political voting pattern. Why the hell we are asking the people of Laventille to change theirs? The answer is very simple. Those persons in Caroni have been the beneficiary of development, particularly when the UNC and other versions of it would have been in place, or they would have been in government. The contrary is the case in Laventille, where we have to jettison, dismiss, and render exploitative the PNM. We haven't, of course, voted for them for decades. And what they give us in return is neglect, a pain, ache, agony, stress, depression, and I almost say make us suicidal. But I wouldn't go there, because nobody will commit suicide for them. Nobody. But the fact of the matter is, they have destroyed us. They have disappointed us. They have given, in return for our loyalty, poison, the toxicity of which is reflected in family disintegration, in our kids not performing well in school, single parents struggling with menial work opportunity to put food on the table. That is the reality. And as if that was not enough, the housing accommodation is woefully inadequate. Our roads have deteriorated and are in need of repair. Our population has increased to the point where, while not a crisis, but certainly it means that there is more mouth to feed, but you do not have jobs. And I have always argued that in a concrete jungle that Laventille is, having regard to the fact that it is in close proximity, a stone's throw from Port of Spain, you could walk. You cannot tell a fella who may be catching the stay, let's say in Guayari, to walk to Tong. And the fellow who is catching the stale in Laventille, you can't ask him to walk to Guayari because there is still, of course, fish around that people can, of course, get for free, fruits, and, of course, agricultural produce so that you could still live. And, of course, there you may not have to be concerned about your attire, so you don't have to go and buy what I consider to be appropriate or adequate clothing like the fella in Tong who must have that because it is Tong. He must be adequately dressed. The ordinary person can't go into Port of Spain looking like one of the street dwellers who will not take care of himself to the point where he's wearing rags. Can't do it. And then, of course, he will, of course, not be able to eat the concrete or dig up the ground to bubble up a pot. The point I am making is that in Laventille, the people there must have work because they must have money to survive. It may not be as urgent or as significant in a far away, maybe countryside communities such as Guayari, Toko, etc., where a person could still go in the garden and pick up, of course, some fruit or some provision and still bubble up a pot and go in the sea and probably catch a fish or two. That's the point I am making. You see, I had this argument before. And I remembered very distinctly when, of all people, a youth officer in the Ministry of Sports and Youth Affairs at the time, I think he was the director of youth. And I made a statement that was recorded in a newspaper indicating that Laventille is a concrete jungle and requires money for the young people and for the community in general to survive. Whereas, in the case of a community such as I mentioned, Mayaro and Guayari, the necessity of money because you could eat alternatively, or should I say, compared to that of the urban youth, which of course are those that are living and resident in Laventille and East Port of Spain and Beetham and Sealots and Belmont and St. Babs and of course Africa and the Mova and the Malik. These youths and this community must have money to survive. Must have money to survive, as opposed, as I said, to a lesser degree to those who may be existing in what is considered to be rural conditions. I'm not taking away the need for adequate attention to be paid to the rural community, but I'm saying that the likelihood of social upheaval, social dissent, and in the context of Trinidad and Tobago and Laventille and East Port of Spain and of course the East-West Corridor up probably to La Hoqueta and so on, it is manifested of course in gang warfare, it is manifested of course in borderline issues, it is manifested in the disintegration of families, it is manifested in of course parents not being able, of course, to provide food, will throw a blind eye to the son or the daughter that comes home with a brand new dress or groceries for which the family could not have afforded, and they were through a blind eye. One of the reasons, of course, why very early the young in these parts gravitate to a life of crime. There's somebody on the ground report today asks, well, listen, you can't blame the government for them going or gravitating to a life of crime. And I say, in the context of Trinidad and Tobago, hogwash you're talking. Hogwash. You see, both in terms of structure, the economy itself is structured in such a way that the government stimulates private enterprise, generally speaking, because the budget itself is made up, of course, of recurring expenditure, whether it be paying of salaries and, of course, other amenities that must be acquired by the state to facilitate their employees, whether it be down to toilet paper, sugar and coffee. But there's also a segment of the budget that speaks to what is called the PSIP, the Public Sector Investment Program, PSIP. And that is designed to, of course, give work, let's say, to contractors to build the roads, or give work to the program called URP or CPEP. Understand where I'm coming from? The PSIP handles that aspect of it. And as a consequence of that, more people can now participate or patronize private businesses, such as the owner of a grocery or a shop or a parlor. If the URP man or the CPEP fella or the person working with the contractor that got a contract from the state, and the state and the treasury would have paid that contractor, he in turn will pay his workers, and his workers now will go and patronize the grocery, the shop, the clothing store, possibly the home appliance enterprise. And that is how the cycle of the economy in the context of Trinidad and Tobago operates, and has been so from time immemorial. Of course, there are causative agents for that. One, the state would have acquired the commanding heights of the economy, and here we talk about gas, oil, and petrochemical. Take charge of it, but more so would be dependent on it, even though it would have facilitated that by negotiation with foreign, let's say, investors in these areas. But it is a commodity that is in demand, and of course it is like black gold. And so by doing that, these companies will now be able to pay their dues in the form of taxes that will, of course, go to the treasury, and therefore the consolidated fund, and of course put there in holding for the next budget cycle, when of course the process is rekindled and continue to revolve. That is how it is. So it is foolish for anybody, and that is where I part with, of course, people like Gary Griffith and they, who simply are saying, to solve a particular problem of young people, of course, holding guns or acquiring guns and so on, don't give them any contract, because they go take the money and buy guns. No. You have to be able to find ways and means to address that particular concern, but you cannot starve the people or starve these young people because you have a gun problem with them. No, that's a separate issue altogether. I remembered very distinctly, and I mentioned it this morning, in terms, of course, of the person who found themselves in hot waters with the authorities. And I can mention her, I don't think she would object. Lister Penny. Wonderful work. She saw the problem of young people begging and scavenging for food around Kentucky, in Port of Spain, the South Key, etc. And she went to work. And she eventually, of course, acquired a building. And she housed them there. And 1 turned to 2, and 3, and 4, and 5, and so on, until she had literally what you may call an orphanage, but of a different kind. Street children, she was able, of course, to treat with. Imagine the state is unable to do it, and this private person take up this responsibility. Awesome responsibility. It just, of course, Archbishop Barbara Grayburg, when she took up, of course, the cause of the Shouter Baptist community, and, of course, still managing, of course, a children's home. Just as I had done with respect to MLIO, over 6,000 young people would have graduated. Yes, people like that still exist there, but are not motivated. Because I remember at one time, when I approached the government for assistance, Robinson at the time provided, of course, all kinds of assistance, I want to say, including financial. In fact, Robinson and they were so elated with what was happening that the people themselves took the initiative, saw the problem, and decided to do something about it. That one time, I think it was the Canadian or the British High Commission, had, of course, donated some tools or some monies to the program. And the office of the Prime Minister, Robinson's administration, they wrote to the embassy, haven't seen it on television or in the newspapers, thanking them for giving us, even though they didn't do anything, the government didn't do anything for us to get that, but we were 100% community-based. But that was a significant gesture by the then Robinson administration, because it shows that they have a sensitivity and a recognition that they couldn't do it, but we did it. We did it. The ordinary person did it. And for them to do it, it would have had endless red tape, endless bureaucracy, etc. But the embassies and they will have less of that and will be sympathetic once your program fall in line with their, of course, their external, or put another way, their country's external policy in relation, of course, to the countries that they may have emissary representation in. So, if that would have been part and parcel of the initiative by the people, seeing the problem, finding ways to solve the problem, and doing yeoman service without reward. I was making the point that when the time came and when 1 turned into 2, 3, 4, 5, and in my case, 300 young people between the ages of 15 and 21, 22, thereabouts, and we training them. Yes, we charge them a small stipend to, of course, take the program because we have no other means of sustenance. And if we have to do this thing 24/7, we have to have a source of income. We have to eat too. Rowley and Manning and them and the PNM didn't understand that, you know. They feel you must do that and turn your blood to water and maybe eat yourself as food. Yes, self-imposed cannibalism. That's how I see it. So when we approach them by way of proposals, whichever ministry, whether it's sports, whether it's community development, whether it's social development, etc., based on the grant offerings that they would give for specific community-based initiatives like that, you know what they say? They take their time. All that time, you are struggling with a massive amount of young people who you are guiding, who you are training. And they will tell you, they have the audacity, when you ask them, of course, to please hurry, they will say, well, nobody told you to take up that responsibility. Just imagine that. I got that. And I'm sure that Lester Penny and Archbishop Barbara Grayburg and those who would have died in the service of volunteerism of that nature, I'm sure the aunts will be sending a message to them or vice versa. Yeah. They tell us that, listen, so you are faced with 300 youths. You don't know when the next money will come to pay the light bill that is consumed to power the tools that you would have acquired. Yeah? To pay or to give the instructors a little stipend. Nothing much compared to what the government will have to do, because they have all kinds of constraints, including, of course, the trade union and, of course, standards that they have to meet internationally. The NGOs of which I speak, they have that problem, because people will come to you, as I have experienced, and say, Mr. Smith, I always wanted to be a teacher. And, of course, we'll give them a little test, go in the class, and of course, demonstrated that you could weld, demonstrate that you could sew, demonstrate that you could make a dress, demonstrate that you could fix hair in the area of cosmetology. Yeah. And we give them the job because we are glad for the assistance. But we know over time, if they're dedicating themselves 24/7 to the program, we have to find ways and means. The administrators, the managers have to find ways and means to feed them, to give them something to go home at the end of the week or the month, as the case may be. It was a struggle. It was a struggle and will continue to be a struggle. And when that kind of animosity, when that kind of insensitivity comes from the state that failed to understand that we were doing their job, the only difference is that we could do it much more efficaciously, and as of course I'm making a mockery of Stuart Young's new ministry of efficiency. I want to tell him that we in the NGO, CBO, and religious organizations, a fraternity, doing it for free, have been doing it, their work, much more efficaciously or much more efficiently than them, because they would have to pay more. They would have, of course, to have strictures and rules that the person who would, of course, engage in the way on the basis of the community, all the community accept, of course, the unwritten rule, because all of us are from the same place, and therefore they don't mind you accommodating their children, because they know that the intent is good, and at the end of the day they will learn a skill, and they therefore go out there and chart their own path, but one that is righteous. They don't understand and will deprive these organizations. I am sure right now, whether it's the football organization, whether it be the athletics organization, whether it be, of course, a person with a little kindergarten, doing it literally for free and have to find all of the overheads that Serval and them will also have, and that the government have to also pay. But they're telling you, well, we take up the responsibility for if you knew that you couldn't find ways and means to continue. totally insensitive. I got that kind of embarrassment, so I can tell you. I even went as far as to suggest, and I'm going to do that, of course, when Kamala Prasad Bisesa, the UNC, of course, and the coalition of interests takes office. Just after, well, on the 29th of April. Because you see, they always will tell you the common thread is about transparency and accountability. Every government department you go to and you interact as a private entity addressing a particular social problem that the government is supposed to address, but you have taken it up on your own volition to, of course, address, but realize that it has reached a stage where it is overwhelming. I tell you, one turn into 300 in my case. What do you do in such circumstance where a government says no funding for you? No funding, especially when you were getting it, but because they believe that you are not politically aligned to them, you get nothing. And let me tell you this, it is not confined to my own experience, but it has been Archbishop Barbara Gray Burke as well. When, of course, the UNC, it is in government, they recognize the significant role and the, what I consider the pioneering role, the initiating role of Archbishop Barbara Gray Burke as the one among the few. Not only is she still alive, but generated the conditions to get the Shouter Baptist holiday on the 30th of March every year since its inaugural celebrations. But let me tell you this, when the PNM come into office, whether it's Manning, when Manning was a little more, should I say, elastic. But certainly, this Rowley administration and this fella called Young clearly was part and parcel of it, so we cannot distinguish or divide them. They are one and the same, half a dozen or one and six of the other. Same. But when Rowley is in office, he says, come, you're going to get, of course, support. And when you submit a budget for 300,000 to celebrate properly, they then, of course, with great fanfare, media, and so on. And when Archbishop Barbara Gray Burke collects the check, or her representative collects the check, it's $35,000. $35,000, $25,000, yes. And the group that the PNM, the Rowley administration, favors, like the one that got the $10 million, had nothing to do with Archbishop Burke and us of the Council of Elders. They're getting 100,000 and 200,000 and so on, because they favor them. There's no equity, there is no decency, there is no consideration of the historical antecedent and the significance of Archbishop Barbara Gray Burke in this whole. It is about pure politics and favoritism, but politics of a barbaric nature, raw and brutal. It is Machiavellian in nature. Yeah? Yes, people. That's what this is all about. That is Rowley and they. And I spoke with Archbishop Burke only last week, and she said she will not apply because, of course, for any money at all, because they're making her a pappy show. And these tokens that they give to say that we gave, and I'm sure that when the information and the issue would have been raised, you know what they're going to say now? She never applied, and therefore there was no consideration, and therefore her argument about being mistreated and ill-treated over the administration is unfounded. That is what they would say. But let's go to the lines. A pleasant good night. Welcome to the corridor. Oh, sorry about that. Go ahead, my friend. Go ahead. Sorry about that. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, go ahead, Sandy.
I have to get back in touch with you. That'll be Tuesday,
Okay, no problem.
because I have to just ask you something to how to get something to you, right?
Okay.
Right. So I'll get back for sure, right?
Yes, no
But
problem.
what I'm going to say as you talk about that,
Yes.
I hear a Baptist leader say that we will take from them, but all you know where we heart is. You understand?
Yes.
So I understand what you're saying there, because I hear that with my own ears. But I'm gonna just tell you something.
Go ahead.
We had to be looking carefully at the EBC with the election and also the court ruling. Because you can remember just recently in Indian War, when a ballot that the UNC had supposed to win the election, and it wasn't signed by the presiding officer,
Yes.
and they went to court. Now the court ruled and say, well, the vote is not valid, the ballot paper, and they went back to have the election, which the PNM won. But what I'm saying, that is something I will say is a bad ruling, because that left room for thievery. Because why I'm saying that, because if a person vote and they hasn't done anything wrong, like with the spoiling of the ballot paper, maybe blotting it, or voting outside of the box, or between some candidate, and they vote correctly, why you should have the commissioner deciding the election then? Because what will happen there? If at any time I is a presiding officer now, and I looking at you and I believe that you might be voting for the certain party then, who I really, I could have just assign it. And at the end of the day, if I do about 25, I might have a 5,000 vote or some kind of thing, and the election close. I could decide the outcome at the election.
No, you're quite right. You're quite right.
Understand?
You're quite
Do you
right.
understand what I'm saying?
Yes, you're quite right.
So the court, our court, have to be looking at this thing carefully when they're making this type of ruling, because this type of ruling could have serious repercussions, right? They have to be careful, because at no time the presiding officer should not determine if my vote is valid or not, because that is my right to vote. And if you could tell me no, the presiding officer had to decide my vote is valid or not, then we supposed to have the rights, everybody who voting, to make sure to tell the presiding officer to sign that paper. And they have to sign that paper properly in front of you, so that a mistake like that should not be made again. Because our court, we ain't have good court ruling. But I'll get back in touch with you, Mr. Smith.
Thank you very much.
Sir.
And it makes a lot of sense. And while, of course, the example I'm going to draw may not be as specific as the one that he gave, but the fact of the matter is that these things occur. And I agree, the court must be minded of the fundamental principle of the value of one's franchise. People died to, of course, determine their own destiny. In other words, for the ability and the affordability to vote. So anybody who, of course, dismisses that fundamental, really and truly, must be questioned as to their understanding of that fundamental principle of the right to vote. You cannot sit in some ivory tower or some cloistered office and say that no, when the person is clearly, you can see on the ballot paper who they wanted to vote for. Clear, that is the issue. And the presiding officer not signing, rare as that occasion is, there may be for whatever reason, should not disenfranchise that person it is not remedied by calling the election null and void, as the caller rightly said, and to, of course, have a fresh elections. No, you don't have that right. If the person who voted and the vote is, if the ballot is not spoilt, you see clearly who, but because it did not get the signature of the EBC official representative, but everybody agreed that it was in fact a ballot that showed that that person intended to vote for a particular party. It doesn't matter where it is, whether it's PNM, whoever. It's the principle we are talking about here. No judge should take it upon him or herself to disenfranchise any member of the electorate in that way. You see, the other example that we have that is brutal and, of course, obvious is that of when Rowley postponed the local government elections. And the fundamental principle of people's franchise must not be interfered with came up for scrutiny and for consideration. And the law lord said in no uncertain terms, Rowley and your government, your cabinet, all conspired to prevent people from exercising their right to vote. That is what the Privy Council said. Of course, in its typical asinine, rambunctious, and of course, bombastic and arrogant way, he comes to the parliament and talking about Rowley and say that if anybody say that we infringe the constitution, he begged to differ. Hold your tail. It has nothing to do with you. The fact is that people's right to vote was curtailed, was emasculated, was taken away by you going to parliament with your slim majority, and I'm sure the law lords would have taken note of that. You only had 22 seats and pretending as though you got a landslide of 27, as the case may be. So the law lords are very meticulous, and I'm sure that if that went to them, that incident to it, that one ballot that would have made the difference, whether it went to the UNC or the PNM, you would see, I'm sure, that they would have said that the ballot is valid because the important person here is the elector, the person who casts his or her vote. And once it is within, of course, the column that could clearly state who they want to vote for, how the non-presence of the presiding officer's signature comes into play. Because you could check that against other paper trail documents that they would have with them in that room, in that, of course, polling station. You have, of course, a recording of what transpired from the start of polling to the end. You have people, of course, checking for those who would have voted on the registration, the registration list provided by EBC. You would have had, of course, the checking of the ballot by opening the box at the end of the poll, and of everybody witnessing opening the ballot and checking. All of those things would have occurred to show that there would be very little room for error. But the most blatant of them all is when a person spoiled the ballot. Then you know that that is no good because you can't determine who. But once you can determine who, then the sacred right of the individual to have their vote counted would have been infringed when the contrary decision was made, as was the case, and I agree with, of course, the caller that the judges erred in their pronouncement. Professor, good night. Welcome to the corridor.
Good night, Mr. Smith.
Good night to you, my friend. I did read out the earlier excerpt of the letter. I have not completed it, but I did do something. I trust you might have gotten a hearing of it. Because you made the recommendation last night.
In all honesty, I was focused on the UNC report.
Oh, all right, okay, yes. Everybody seemed to be that attached tonight. Of course, I will get it after the fact. I probably should have brought it on. I didn't remember that. Otherwise, I'll have tuned into it. So you will have the benefit of it here on the corridor as well. Has it finished? Is it finished?
Yes, it has.
Okay, all right, okay, well. All right. All right, I'll have to take it belatedly. Yeah, go ahead.
Based on our concerns
Yes,
with the integrity of our election,
yes.
have you ever noticed how the 1% protects their investment with cameras focusing on the catchers?
Yeah,
We may very well have to resort to that type of activity where these presiding officers are concerned. The ensure sleight of hand is minimized and not, as the previous caller mentioned, determine the outcome of the election based on their own likes and dislikes.
okay.
And I know that at this 11th hour, that it would appear to be difficult, but it isn't. Technology has gotten to where it's quite easy to set up these cameras and make everybody aware of their existence, forcing them to do the right thing at all times.
Yes,
So it might be something that we have to look into.
yeah.
It protects you 1%. Money is at the end of the day. And our franchise, our voters, at this point in time, it's far more important to us, the masses, the 99%,
Yes.
than what they hope to do with their 1% income and earnings.
Yes. It's a numbers game.
Yeah, so I don't
No,
know.
I take it. I take it because while you were speaking there, a thought came to my mind, or should I say, a recollection came, where, of course, the use of body cameras by police, for example, has the same effect or intent. That is to say, to protect the police officer, and at the same time, have him or her execute their duty without fear or favor, because the body camera will capture rather than being subjected maybe to some loose and, of course, vindictive vendetta of someone that they may have come in contact with, or not come in contact, but by a casual observer. So I take the point about the cameras being, of course, at strategic location where the sleight of hands could be easily recorded if there is such an intention. So yes, I agree the technology does exist, but whether or not the investment will be made, because you have a fellow like Rowley who would say that we are accustomed, of course, having free and fair elections, but he has been the most infringer of free and fair elections over the years that he has disgraced, of course, the political landscape of Trinidad and Tobago. But I don't know if you have any closing comment, and if you take note of my own example to reinforce what you have said.
Well, it would appear that brilliance seems to be contagious on the coroner.
I hear you, my friend. I hear you.
So
You make me laugh, do
we
I?
must not allow good ideas to passively slip by.
Yes, I agree.
And we should raise it where, and I'm certain the UNC will find merit in our suggestion.
Yes, oh yes, yes indeed. I will, I'm sure I'll have the opportunity in due course to, of course, bring these
And we have
and
on board,
others. Yeah.
currently we have on board a very resourceful individual in the form of Philip Alexander. I think that if he hears our suggestion, he will run with that. And there's no telling what he can achieve based on his resources. So,
Well, as you say that, I spoke to him earlier this evening, and as you say, resource, I had to confess. I said, listen, I would want you to attend, of course, the formal launch or the presentation of our candidate at the corner of George and Prince Streets. Very nice open space there. Of course, the usual infrastructure, if you put it that, or the accoutrements will be there, music notwithstanding. But of course, I want him to bring some of his flags and all of that to show the camaraderie and to show, of course, that it is truly a coalition of interests. And of course, I was, and he said that he will certainly be there. A fella doesn't waste any opportunity to have an opportunity to, of course, expose or express his ideas and his issues. So I thought I should mention that because I don't think it was by accident you mentioned him as one that is very, what I can say, be creative and is prepared to step out of the box and bring to the table solutions that in most instances the PNM may find it extremely difficult because of tradition and other factors that they have been doing it for so long that way that it can't change. Just before you go, there's a standing joke I remember immediately while speaking. Right now, having said what I said, it came to mind, and that is something that was told to us by Robert Amaro. He said, of course, that there was this family who, of course, Christmas time, they bought an oven, but the oven was too small to accommodate the ham. So they cut the ham, and they allowed the ham, and therefore was able to fit in the oven so that it could, of course, bake as they would like. So the following year, a similar situation developed and so on. But of course, over time, they got a large stove with a large oven, one with which the whole ham could fit. But to everybody's amazement, they continued to cut the ham and put some portion piece by piece into the overly large oven. And of course, somebody inquired and said, well, why are you doing that? Well, everybody was stunned. They said, well, listen, I really don't know, but it's a tradition. A tradition. So, a tradition that have long been passed on, or should I say, long outlived its usefulness, because there's an oven that could take the whole damn ham. Why are you cutting it? I suppose I see Philip Alexander as that kind of fellow who, of course, will recognize that the oven could take the whole ham. Why would you want to cut it because of tradition? That's the point I was going to make. I am making with that example. Yes.
exactly.
Yes.
And I trust having regard to what you just explained, that you will in fact raise the
Oh yes. You could rest assured.
Yeah, because
with upliftment and with a sense of fair play in mind that we should have free and fair elections.
But
And that is my
but
motive.
the initiators, I shouldn't, yeah, initiators, yes, in a sense that whilst of course it is inevitable, they have no choice, they have to call election at a certain point in time, beyond which of course it will be seen as treason. But the current, I should say maybe the incumbent, is not prepared to play fair. They have never had, of course, a fair level playing field in mind. Always want a unfair advantage, and that is what transpired. Just hold on, Miss Santa Cruz. I'm closing off with Mr. St. James.
We
Yes.
know that based on our history, and we know that
Yeah.
based on their activities, we know that they're not playing fair. So that's why we have to come up with
Ways and means to, of course,
them.
counter that. Yes, I
Counter
agree.
them.
And that is why we are talking about following, we're talking about drones, we're talking about cameras, etc., etc. Thank you very much for your intervention.
Good night, Mr. Smith.
Same to you, my friend. Have a good one. Yes, a pleasant good night, Mr. Santa Cruz. Yeah, everybody was glued to the television tonight at because of the activity at La Jolla. But go ahead, tell me. I forgot about it. Otherwise,
you
I
know
would
I
have put it
know
on.
find
Yes.
the program.
Huh?
You know I know find the program, Lennox.
Okay.
Lennox, I left there 9:45 and we couldn't get even. There's a chatter there as well. She asked her, she said she's not getting on. She's not getting on. I know, acknowledge her, tell her, look, I know get on myself.
What are
we
you on?
having a lot of troubles getting on to the program.
YouTube or
YouTube,
Facebook?
yeah.
YouTube. All right.
Well, I only try YouTube.
All right,
Yeah.
okay. Because I was trying to
because
get
what
it on
happened
Facebook
to-
and I have difficulty. So there may be some issues that we need
Yes,
to
and
address.
what happened to there's a wrong date. There's a wrong date on it too that throw us off. It's saying the 31st, today's the 27th. Yeah, no, but we now seeing the 27th.
Oh, okay. Well, I don't
Right,
know what
so I don't
happened
know if
there
that's
because I
the
started off with
But I know,
27.
I know you're tired.
Yes,
I know you're tired and you want to wrap up,
Yes.
right? But I want to ask you a question.
Go ahead.
Did you see the video that I sent for you?
No, I didn't have a look at it, but I'll look at it tonight. But give me a heads up now as to what it's all about.
It is about Renison Jeffries threatening me, threatening my life.
Okay, yes, I heard it this morning. Heard you this morning on the ground
Yeah.
report. Even though I was in the background, because it's so much things to do. So
You were
I
hearing.
give way to these guys. Yeah, but
Right.
it was within my
And-
ear, so I'll take a look at it as well. And
Take
I'm
a
going to
look
talk
at
to
it,
him because
Lennox.
we have a good relationship. That
I
to
hope
me
that
seem-
you- yeah.
yeah, seems to be uncharacteristic of
Right.
of him. He's not, to me, he's not that
And-
kind of fella. So
and-
I'll check it out.
But Lennox, he's not that kind of fella. But if you see the video,
All
if
right.
you
Yeah,
see
yeah,
the video, but you know
the
what,
video will
Lennox?
speak volume.
You
yeah.
remember? Yeah, you remember I told you some time ago that there are people trying to get me off the charts.
Yes,
For
yes.
whatever reason, I don't know. But today I get to find out who were the ones. He called me today, He
Okay.
called me today, right? He did. He called me today, right? And he changed the whole story,
Okay.
right? And I got
Well,
to find out.
You know
I
it's an
got to find out.
excuse. Yes. You're looking for forgiveness. All right, go ahead.
Yeah, but I ain't forgiven. I'm still going in the station in the morning.
I hear you. I
Right?
hear you.
Because I don't know which one of his fanatics will meet me the road and kill me. Yes, because of 5 individuals on the ground report chat.
Okay.
And those people will have blood on their hands for doing that. But we'll talk tomorrow, Lennox. You take care and have a good night.
Yes, I'll wrap it up now. Yes. People, of course, we have come to the end of the program. That was Ms. Santa Cruz, our external, should I say, correspondent. And, of course, I was so enthusiastic in promoting, of course, the candidate and, of course, our electoral activity, our campaigning activities that I omitted to of course, go across to La Jolla tonight. But certainly, I'm sure that I'll make available to myself excerpts of that, and I will share it with those of you who preferred, of course, to focus on the corridor and not there. That being an option that you would have had. Right. Those of you who are getting difficulty in logging on to the Corridor Transformation on YouTube, I don't know what more I can do, but I will certainly attempt to find out why this is happening. And as I said, I tried to get on to Facebook, logging on to Alfred John, as I said, and I didn't get it. Let me try again. Before we go, let me try again. I'll log on to Alfred John, ALFRED. Let's see what's happening there. Alfred, all right, Alfred John Bram, and let me see what is happening. As if tonight's program should have been the first thing to pop up, and I'm not seeing it. So I'm not seeing it. And of course, next week we'll have the word live. All right, I'm not seeing it, but I tested it on YouTube, and it was in fact on YouTube. So I'll have to do some more checking to see what has gone wrong in terms of easy access to the live. As I said, Alfred John, I may have to maybe start with a different page. Never could tell. I'll have to, of course, revamp the entire thing. So, but of course, let's see how that pops up. Remember, of course, that tomorrow morning, the ground report, Andy, Mikey, and myself, and of course, we'll talk about a little more about the press conference, and then, of course, the launch later down in the evening, just outside our headquarters on George Street. Have a wonderful rest of the night. God bless. And then let me just, of course, play that, what I consider to be ad that I will be, of course, uploading tonight on different platforms to
Laventille Outreach for Vertical Enrichment invites all media houses to our press conference and presentation of candidate for Laventille West at campaign headquarters, 55 George Street, Port of Spain, on Friday 28th, March 2025, from 10:30 a.m., third building from the Prince Street corner. Laventille must live better. We can do better. When UNC and Coalition win, everybody wins.
Yes, indeed. So, a pleasant good night once again. All the bless. Sleep tightly. I will go and take an early one. I have to get up early in the morning to do my research, and then, of course, be on the ground report, and then get back to that press conference exercise.
government who don't fight we down, a government who does work, a government who think